Alrighty, so today I am going to talk to you about nori, which is a component of sushi. Now, what is nori? Nori is more commonly known as the seaweed around a sushi roll. Um, Nori is a red algae that turns dark green when it is dried into the sheets that is used for the roll. This has been eaten for nearly 2,000 years. It's highly prized back in the day, and expensive food was enjoyed by nobility. So today's nori is from the Edo era, which took place from 1600 to 1870. The nori life cycle was unknown until 1949 by botanist Kathleen Drew Baker. So algae didn't have seeds, so farmers used luck and relied on it to determine when harvesting time was coming. Um, Drew Baker also discovered spores, which made it possible to predict efficient cultivation of the nori for the farmers. So there are some current issues with nori today. There is a decline throughout Japan. Now, the causation of this is warming seas, and there is actually not enough pollution. So global warming, as we know, causes warmer water, and nori is cultivated in the winter from October to February. Also, there's too much regulation and cleanup of waterways, which reduces the natural nutrients for algae to develop its nutrients and coloration as well. Uh, the farmers believe that focusing more on regulations rather than warming could actually prevent this effect of nori being declined. Now let's talk about the nutrient composition of nori. So nori per 100 grams of nutrient composition includes 35 kilocalories, 5.11 grams of carbs, 5.81 grams of protein, 0.28 grams of fat, 0.3 grams of fiber. Now the vitamins that are in nori are folates, niacin, riboflavin, thiamine, vitamins A, C, E, and K. Now there are also minerals that are in this food, such as calcium, copper, iron, magnesium, manganese, phosphorus, selenium, and zinc. There are also electrolytes such as sodium and potassium. Now, let's talk about the relationship to disease that nori has. So, nori seaweed has some health benefits. There's iodine and tyrosine, which support thyroid function. There's a variety of protective antioxidants by reducing the free radical production, which you have a lot of free radicals in your body, you have a higher risk of developing diseases. So, more antioxidants means reduced risk of diseases like heart disease and diabetes as well. Um, and also, seaweed can reduce heart disease risk by reducing the blood cholesterol levels and prevent excess blood clotting. One study that was found, uh, One study found that eating seaweed can improve blood sugar control based on those who have genetic disposition to insulin resistance, like type 2 diabetes. There are other health benefits from seaweed, like anti-inflammatory effects, anti-aging compounds, antimicrobial properties, antioxidants, and there are also positive effects on the cardiovascular system of humans. Now let's talk about the ingredients of nori. So nori is actually just one ingredient and it is itself. It is the seaweed. So how do we determine the freshest and best quality of nori seaweed? So it has a natural sweetness. There's no fishy or strange odor. It should not contain any weird or off flavors from other kinds of seaweed. High quality nori should be crisp at first, but then it melts into your mouth. And low quality nori is tasteless and sometimes mixes with other flavors of seaweed. Now let's talk about the how nori is let's talk about Nori's agriculture. So how is nori made? So there's cultivation, which involves oyster shells attaching to nori seedlings to nets, or spores technically to nets. Uh, and the temperature needs to be just right. Now, the temperature needs to be just right for the germination process for it to grow until installation into the seabed. Now, the harvesting process involves the seaweed buds being dried above sea level, so the nets are raised above the sea level during low tide to prevent algae growth. Now, these nets are installed into the sea almost monthly throughout harvest season in the winter. Nori seaweed sustainability in the environment is very positive, has a very positive effect. Certain types of algae can clean muck from the ocean floors, but this is seaweed or algae that's not commonly eaten, so this is not going to be that type, but this is seaweed in general. So these types of algae can help restore degraded land along highways, parking lots, and under power lines as well, and other places, etc. Now let's talk about how nori is prepared. How does it go from this seaweed to this dried sheet that is so tasty? So dried sheets are used by the same methods of Japanese paper making. The production, the nori is, or the seaweed is placed into a facility to be cleaned, minced, and blended to create a mixture. So then this mixture is sponge pressed and fan dried to move to the drying machine where roasting will begin. So the sheets are loaded into the roasting machine and moved through an oven to bake the sheets. Now, the different types of tastes of seaweed depend entirely on how long uh, it is in there, how long it bakes, or even the temperature, so how hot it is. Now let's talk about my experience with tasting nori. So when tasting nori seaweed and the sushi roll, it had a natural sweet and tangy flavor to it. Now I think, and I truly believe the tanginess came because it was a vegetarian roll. So there's other vegetables in it as well. Um, so as Stacy states, nori seaweed should have a sweet taste that naturally melts in your mouth, which this had done in my mouth. So the sushi roll I had was of high quality because it did just that. Now let's look at what my sushi roll looked like. And this was called a twisted inari sushi roll. So there was asparagus and all other sorts of stuff. Rice, the nori, of course, to hold it together. It was very good. Now let's talk about Japanese eating etiquette and American eating etiquette because they have very unique qualities apart from each other. So in Japan, there is an immense sense of gratitude when having a meal. So at the beginning of every meal, uh, ita, itadakimasu is said, and that translates to "I humbly receive." Um, and in the U.S. eating culture, this isn't really relatable. If any way there's some humbleness to eating a meal, I believe that it would be similar to praying before a meal in a religious context. So another unique quality is that the highest ranking individual in Japan at that table will take the first bite of food before everyone else will. Now, typically the US has everyone eating at the same time when dinner is typically served at the same time. And that about wraps it up. Thank you so much, and here are my references.